Hello, and thank you for joining us here at Ask a Historian. I'm Matthew Wilkinson, historian with Heritage Mississauga. And this week we are thrilled to be joined by Megan Wiles, the Education and Outreach Coordinator for the Museums of Mississauga, and Heliya Babazadeh, Environmental Outreach Coordinator for the City of Mississauga. Together, they are co-leading an exciting new initiative and project called We Are Resilient. And this is a project aimed at educating and developing an interactive program for residents of the city of Mississauga, but also development of an exhibition around climate change and responding to the city of Mississauga's climate change action plan. So again, the project is called We Are Resilient, and we will explore this with Megan and Heliya. Thank you.
So joining us this week on Ask a Historian is Megan Wiles from the Museums of Mississauga and Heliya Babazadeh, I hope, from the environment with the City of Mississauga, and working on a fascinating project called We Are Resilient. And to be honest, Megan, when you first reached out to me, I interpreted it very differently in terms of the historical resilience, right. Not really fully understanding the scope and the connection to the climate challenge, the climate change process or program through the city of Mississauga. And so, to me, it's a fascinating marriage of disciplines. You have, the museum's outreach program and environmental concerns, which I know is on a pressing a focus level at the city of Mississauga, and you're marrying these two things in terms of engagement with the community. And I think that's absolutely a fascinating way to look at the interdisciplinary thing. So Megan, Heliya, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us, Matthew. We're excited to be here, and we think it's exciting and interesting too. So glad it's not only us.
Well, some of the pictures are great. Like I've gone through the website, and some really fun submissions and pictures so far. So great idea, and hopefully we can highlight it a little bit and get people to share their thoughts and their stories and pictures. But let's jump right in and just what can you tell me about We Are Resilient? I mean, I'm someone on the outside. I know nothing. Tell me about it.
Sounds great. Sure. So the project, it's a collaborative project, like you mentioned, and it's delivered in partnership, of course, between the environment section at the City of Mississauga and the Museums of Mississauga. And the project takes place over 3 years, potentially more than that. We're hoping many more. And it kicks off this summer with the We Are Resilient contest for residents of Mississauga. So the contest asks for residents to submit a photograph and an accompanying story about their experience with climate change in Mississauga. And we are also asking to see how are residents taking climate action in their own communities and homes. So the stories and photos that we collect through this contest will be judged by a panel of experts later this fall. And the finalists that are selected will have their photo and story featured as part of an exhibition that opens next summer. So for the exhibition piece, we're looking to open it around mid-July 2022, and it'll be installed at one of the City of Mississauga's parks. We're still determining which park, but that's something totally new for both the environment and museums. We've never done an outdoor exhibition other than Work of Wind, but that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
So then in 2023, the plan is to take the exhibition on the road to city places like libraries. We're thinking schools, maybe some more non-traditional spaces like parking lots, malls, storefronts, and of course, some more parks. And this is all in an effort to keep the conversation about climate change and climate action in our city alive. So that's the big summary.
So what was the genesis of the idea? How did it come about? Like, did Heliya reach out and say, "Hey, I've got an idea"?
Yeah. So we started to talk about this project sometime in, I think, the beginning of 2020. Time is all kind of blurring together a little bit here, but the city council approved the City of Mississauga's first climate change action plan in December of 2019. So kind of rolling off of that. And we know that the environment section at the City of Mississauga, they are our subject matter experts, and they know what's going on with climate change in our city. They regularly do outreach with the community about this topic as well. You've probably come across members of the environmental outreach team at festivals, pre-COVID, of course, or maybe you've taken one of their virtual programs, of which there are many. And then, of course, to mention the guiding document, or one of the guiding documents behind the environment section, is the Climate Change Action Plan, which Heliya will speak to a little later. But one of the goals in that is to engage with the residents of Mississauga on climate change. And for the museum side, we really wanted to work on an exhibition project that was relevant to our community right now and inspired some meaningful action. And of course, climate change is a really important and hot topic right now, not just in the global community, but also for museums. Museums are organizations whose purpose is to preserve and present our culture. So we really acutely feel and understand the impact that the climate crisis is having on our intangible and material culture. And we also have a super unique and privileged platform in society. We are a public forum for dialogue, and we are able to communicate complex concepts like climate change through storytelling and public engagement activities like exhibitions and outreach programs. So for both of us at Environment and Museums, this was a natural opportunity for us to get the word out about something that affects us all, climate change, and do it in a way that's interesting and inspiring for our residents. And most importantly, it invites our residents to get involved and connect on something that really matters.
Well, I think it's an exceptional idea because you do find synergies. Heliya, in the environment education and museum outreach, I mean, there are synergies, but sometimes we think differently, right? Like you don't always meet in a common sense. And I think this is a fascinating thing where you have two separate disciplines in a way that are meeting and finding a common path for connecting to the community. So Heliya, I mean, Megan has talked a lot about the idea behind it, how it came to be, and what the purpose is. But the concept behind it, I mean, this to me, maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like it's born out of the city's climate change action plan and your process of education in the community. So how the concept behind engagement, and then you can talk about maybe the climate change action plan itself, because I will admit that's not something I'm familiar a great deal with. I know it passed, but my education level is very scant at that level. But wondering if you can just talk about kind of the concept of how this idea comes to be in terms of your programming with education in the community, but also with city. You have the Green Leaders program as well, right? With the city leaders. So I'm assuming that all ties in as well. This isn't just for residents, right? This is for city staff as well. But can you jump in and tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so just building on what Megan was saying even earlier, so this particular project, like even climate change is an issue that really impacts everyone, whether you know it or not. Climate change is real, it is happening, and a lot of individuals are taking action towards, you know, mitigating and adapting to the effects of climate change. And so we wanted to share those stories, and we wanted to share that climate change doesn't have any borders. Trying to create this whole idea of like we are all connected, whether we know it or not. So we want to inspire our community and our residents to want to take action and to build a more resilient Mississauga for everyone and for future generations to come. Climate change is a bit of a big term, and when you do start talking about climate change, some people tend to shut down. So what we try to do is we try to approach this particular topic in a more lighthearted manner. So this particular project does exactly that. It shows what people are already doing, why they are taking the actions they are taking, or how even after a climate event, they've become more resilient because of it. You know, and we also do want to still acknowledge the seriousness and urgency that we have to act on the effects of climate change and how we want to, you know, become better. So the Climate Change Action Plan was actually unanimously approved by our amazing council in 2019. And this is actually the city's first comprehensive climate change action plan. This is both a corporate and a community action plan. And it is actually broken down into 5 action pathways, and each pathway does have supporting actions that are associated with it. And one particular action pathway that this particular project is speaking to is the engagement and partnership pathway. So we're trying to build on that pathway and engage our residents on how they can take action, how they can support the city as well to become more resilient.
For me, what I took out of it, and believe me, I don't have a depth study of it, but is you're able to present ideas of what people can do themselves, and that to me, I wonder if that's the big stumbling block. You think climate change, and you're like, what can I do? You know, like it's
Yeah.
that seems like a bigger animal, and then you start realizing, oh, you can do some things yourself. And for me, I know Megan and I have spoken about it. You know, I've seen changes, climate-related changes over my lifetime. Right here in Mississauga, I haven't moved, and well, within the city I moved, but you know, even little things like freezing ice or the amount of rainfall at a one given moment, you know, we see these things around us, right? We see the changes around wildlife. We've seen those changes. I mean, they're probably more in tune with changes in climate than we are as people, and we see those changes too. So I think this is fascinating. But again, the corporate and the individual component of it.
100%.
What Megan, what do you hope that the project will achieve? What's the dream?
It's a long project, Matthew, so we have some lofty goals, but we think that we can achieve them. And just like to add to what Heliya was saying, is we really want for people to be able to connect. We want them to be able to connect with other residents on a topic that truly does affect us all and kind of bring us together and inspire everybody to take action individually and as a community. And we hope to do this by exploring some of those resident stories and photographs through this contest, and then of course later in the exhibition. And really, some of the stories and photos that we've already received through the contest submissions are amazing. They highlight how incredible and, you know, how amazing our residents already are and the action that they're already taking. Even if it's not obvious and in your face, people are doing things right now, and we really want to highlight and celebrate that. We also want for residents to discover the relevance of climate change in their daily lives and in our community. And we really want for people to reflect on how their daily decisions do have an impact, whether they realize it or not. And, you know, for some people, it might not be obvious. Maybe it's not your area of interest, or maybe you don't necessarily care, but climate change is having an impact on things like access to food and resources, our community, our natural spaces, our homes, our everyday activities, and then of course always our future generations. So we really want to help kind of illustrate that in a meaningful and digestible way as well. And of course, one of the big goals for us is to make residents feel empowered. So many projects around climate change can be super doom and gloom and just kind of make you leave feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm just one person. What can I do? But we're hoping by showing off what our residents are up to and showing you how easy some of these actions you can take are, that people will get inspired, come together, and start to take action to stop the effects of climate change, both locally and globally as well.
Absolutely. You know, I was struck by something. The Assembly of First Nations elected a new national chief yesterday, and she said something that resonated with me, and I hadn't thought of it these terms. You know, here I am. I live my life looking backwards, right? I'm a historian. And I always say, you know, pre-1920, I'm pretty good, but coming forward, I get a little foggy. So she said that we have an obligation to be good ancestors for the next 7 generations.
Wow.
Like, you think of, like, I've never put myself in the sense of being an ancestor to someone, you know, and climate change is paramount to that, right? Like the idea of taking care of our environment and what we are passing on. When we go camping, there's an idea, leave the site better than you found it. Right.
Right.
So, in general terms, let's leave the world a little better than we found
Let's
it.
do that on a bigger scale. Yeah.
But, I would have to say we haven't done a great job of that collectively speaking. So,
Right.
this is, we do have to, so that's where I think something like this is really intrinsic to that conversation, and the bigger conversation about societal changes going on right now too. I think it fits right within that feelings that are going on. How can, Heliya, how can people engage with the project itself?
Oh, great question. Yeah, so right now the contest is running on our website. So if residents go on www.mississauga.ca/resilient, they'll find all the information they need on how they can enter into the contest. If they're also interested, they can follow us on social media. So for Twitter is @MILivingGreen, our @Sauga Museums, or on Facebook @Sauga Green or @Sauga Museums. Alternatively, if anyone's interested, they can also email us their photographs and their stories. We would love to get them through email. And my email is heliya.b@mississauga.ca, and Megan's is megan.wiles, WILES, @mississauga.ca. We would love to get everyone's stories and photographs.
And we'll share all of that. So
Great.
Perfect. Yeah,
you don't have to write it down if anyone.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, no worries.
So the themes themselves on your website, I was looking through it, and it's fascinating the way in which you're inviting people to connect on different streams. I don't know if that's the right word, but you have different themes. And Megan, can you talk a little bit about the themes that you have? Because this isn't a one size fits all kind of thing, right? You can connect in different avenues.
Yeah. Thanks so much for this question. We do have 4 guiding themes to kind of help residents who might not know what to submit. And we will admit the subject, climate change, climate action, those are very broad, but we wanted to do that on purpose. And that's so we can open up to a multitude of perspectives. And also we don't want to be too prescriptive for what one individual might interpret as climate change or climate action. So the themes are there to help guide you. And if you do need some help getting inspired, I'll just share the themes briefly. So the first one is the past. So we really want to understand, how has the landscape of our city changed as a result of us? So for example, in Mississauga, we have tons of long-term residents and new residents as well. But maybe for some of those longer-term residents, your neighborhood probably looks extremely different from when you first moved in. Maybe when you moved in, you lived on a farm or there was an apple orchard beside you. Well, we would love to see that. There's only one farm left working or in the city of Mississauga. So seeing pictures of those different spaces and places that no longer exist would be really, really incredible and help us understand how our city has changed. Or maybe you had a forest in your backyard. I know I did when I was growing up, and now it's a bunch of houses. Maybe there's some big roadways or a box store in the way now, or maybe you have some pictures of how the shores of Lake Ontario have changed. We'd love to see that. Please share your pictures and stories on our website. And then our next theme, of course, after the past comes the present. So how does climate change look today? Well, so for many people, and we've talked about this a little bit, they might not notice how climate change affects us. So a few more, maybe an obvious example would be our extreme weather events. And this is something that we're all seeing lately. You must have noticed some of the more frequent, maybe extreme weather alerts, and of course, the tragedies that are happening in BC right now with the extreme heat and the devastating fires that took out whole communities. And I know that's a little bit of a distance from us, but right here in Mississauga, like I think it was yesterday, we had torrential rain coming down. And I don't know about where you are, but for me, it was really chilly. And this was after weeks of heat warnings and plus 35-degree weather. Well, that's all an example of how our climate is changing. Or maybe you're seeing different invasive pests or species than usual. This is another thing that is directly linked to the changing of ecosystems, or in other words, climate change. So this change in our ecosystem can create more hospitable habitats for invasive species and pests that you might not have previously found even a year ago in our area. So we really like to document that and explore that. Then, of course, we have the future. So we're asking residents for this theme, what does a resilient future or a resilient city in the future look like to you? So maybe you imagine a walkable city. I know that I do, with lots of green spaces, and instead of just big roadways and big box stores. As a part of this project, one of our asks is to have the community help us create a roadmap for what the future of our city looks like. And then finally, we have our climate action and resiliency theme. So of course, we've talked about this a lot. We really want to see what are our residents doing right now to take climate action. So it could be something really simple. Maybe you carpool to work. Maybe you have a pollinator garden at home. Maybe you're the master of upcycling, or you eat a plant-rich diet. Well, we really want to see how you're individually taking climate action. And actually, one of the stories from the community that we had as a submission, somebody decided that they were going to go vegan and only eat locally grown food in an effort to be healthier and have less of an impact on the environment. So to illustrate that, they sent in a really great story about their change into veganism and how they are growing their own personal garden. And they shared pictures of how their garden looks with all the veggies that they grow and eat. So if you have a garden, we want to see it. And we know that during COVID, like community gardens, there was a boom. I think in 2020, I'm just looking at a stat here. Yes, community gardens grew over 3,000 pounds of produce in 2020, which is the highest yield that we ever had in history.
Awesome.
So if this is what you're doing, send in your pictures. We want to see it and we want to hear about it.
I know my son, just a personal thing, we had a tiny little garden last year with a single raspberry bush in it, and that was his pride and joy. He's a young kid. And so this year we expanded it. We've got raspberries and strawberries and blueberries and mint and something. We did a whole, like, tripled the size of it. And this is, this little kid, he's totally into it. Like, this is, so you encourage that, right? You want to encourage that.
Yeah, and he's like gaining those skills too, those really important skills that a lot of us don't have. So that's lovely. Tell him to send a pic.
I will. Wait till we get the good bumper crop of raspberries. It'll be. So I know this is a contest, and maybe to sweeten the pot and get people interested, you have prizes, and so obviously submitting through the email or website are your ways to submit. But can you talk a little bit about Heliya, about the prizes that are available and what people can hope to achieve? Let's entice them in.
No, 100%. Yeah, so if you happen to submit your photographs and stories, you get a chance to not only win amazing prizes, but to also be part of a big exhibition that, when we stated earlier, that's happening in 2022 and later on. So there's actually two categories that individuals can submit under. It is a category of adults, so that's anyone over the age of 18, and then there's also youth, age 17 and under. And both categories have a first, second, and third place prize, so you can win a DSLR camera. Second place prize is the HP Sprocket package, and then a third prize, which we love, is the Mississauga Made gift card. We want to make sure that we are supporting local. So all these photos will be judged by our amazing panel of judges. And so you can get your photograph and accompanying story as part of a beautiful exhibition in 2022.
Wonderful. I love the idea of enticing people to invite them to share.
100%.
So you have some examples to kind of close us on some of the things that you've received already. Do you want to share with us some of the stories that you received, just for inspiration, but also to highlight some of the things that have already been sent in?
For sure, I'd love to do that. Great.
There we go.
Amazing. So as part of this particular project, we also have individuals who we are calling Resilient Champions. So Mayor Bonnie Crombie was kind enough to be one of our We Are Resilient Champions. So these are some of the photographs that she has submitted, and I'll just quickly go over her story. So some of my cherished childhood memories are spending time with my close friends in the open green spaces and woodland areas around my home. This is where I felt most free and at peace. As I raised my own family in the city, I shared my love of nature with my children, and it became very clear to me just how important accessible green spaces are for residents and families. When I became mayor of the great city of Mississauga, I committed to ensuring that as our city builds up, our green spaces must build out. I firmly believe we need to build a city where everyone, no matter where they live, has easy access to Mississauga's parks and trails. Protecting and growing our green spaces is part of our efforts to battle climate change, but protecting them is also important for our physical and mental health. One of the things the pandemic has shown us is just how important our green spaces are. They are the places where we've been able to escape to for walks or bike rides, or simply to read a book. They can never be taken for granted. Mississauga's parks and trails are true gems in our city, and maintaining them for generations to come is a top priority of mine. They make our city more beautiful, and they make us more resilient. This was a beautiful story submitted by Bonnie Crombie, so thank you. Next story.
Okay, so this one is from Tracy, who is our collections assistant at the Museums of Mississauga. Many of you have probably seen her name before. So take a look at this watering can. While not aesthetically pleasing to the eye, you can see how it was valued for many years by the Harris and Sayers family of Clarkson. Covered in 2 different colors of paint and numerous patches of solder on its body, it was deemed sturdy enough to spend time on to repair and renew instead of disposing it for trash. With the rise of mass production of consumer goods, the formation of disposable or throwaway society, many have seemed to lose the mending and repair skills practiced in many 19th and early 20th century households. However, today there seems to be renewed interest in the repair culture, which is helping to reduce waste, including the waste and energy used from extracting and producing raw materials. And then she poses the question, do you spend any time on repairing and saving items from landfills?
Beautiful.
Wonderful concepts, yes.
100%. Great. So this is an amazing photograph.
This is awesome.
It is beautiful. It actually, it gives me chills. I love it. So this is a story and photograph that was actually submitted by one of our amazing residents, Jennifer. So we thought we'd share to give some inspiration for others on what they can submit to us. So the story goes, this is a photo that encapsulates my past, the present, and the future. The date is July 2021, and my toddler is standing in the garden of my childhood Mississauga home with his grandfather. Grandpa is teaching his grandson how to care for the plants. We need to protect the environment so that generations don't suffer the effects of climate change. The summer of 2021 has had multiple heat warnings, as well as devastating climate conditions in British Columbia. Our wish is to educate our child to live a lifestyle that respects the environment. I don't know about you, but that literally, both photo and story, just gave me chills.
Perfect.
That's an amazing picture. That's your title picture right there.
Yeah, 100% for sure. We're gonna yes, number 1. Yeah. I'll open up the exhibition.
That's fantastic. You know, and there's our links there too, and we'll share them at the end as well. And you know what? Just kudos to the team for doing this, and I'm fascinated to see, you know. I'm physical in my sense, so I want to see the installation in the park. You know?
Us too.
Yeah.
But you know, I hope you get a ton of responses and people engage with this, and I know it'll build over time. This, like I said, it's a 3-year project, right? So, and
at least, yeah. We're hoping for more.
3 becomes 5, becomes 10, and we start having bigger conversations. So. Yeah. And if there's anything I can do to help, please don't hesitate to ask. This is fantastic.
Well, we already have to thank you to mention to Matthew, you're also one of the We Are Resilient champions. So thank you so much. You can look on our Facebook page to see Matthew's amazing story and photographs. So thanks again for that and for having us today to talk more about the project.
You know, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for joining us here at Ask a Historian. And we look forward to exploring this as this project develops. And maybe we can come back and, you know, we'll talk about the next stages as you guys go through it, and and do that and to share with our community. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you
Thanks
for
again,
having us.
Matthew. Okay.
Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you for spending some time with us here at Ask a Historian. And thank you to Megan and Heliya, the co-leads for the We Are Resilient program through the City of Mississauga and the Museums of Mississauga. And we're excited to see where this program goes, and we invite everyone who is listening to send in your stories, share the links, and let's get this as a citywide conversation. And please, as I said, send in your stories, send in your pictures, be part of the program, and we'll have an exciting conversation moving forward around the city's climate change action plan, and more particularly, what we can each do individually to kind of meet the challenges that are coming forward. So thank you again for the leadership of Megan and Heliya on the We Are Resilient program. Thank you.